Last September, a friend of mine, David Michael Jenkins, gave me a book called The Mission, the Men, and Me. And I'd highly recommend this book. I absolutely loved it. I couldn't put it down. I couldn't stop reading it. But I want to share one excerpt from that book that I think is so good. It's just genius. It really is. So it's a book written by a Delta Force commander about his experiences in warfare. And so as they're looking at a particular mission, they start talking about how are they going to handle it. And they go into the idea of situational development. And in this conversation, they talk about Lewis and Clark, how in their quest to find the Pacific Ocean, they had no trails. They had no maps. They just had to figure it out as they went. And so here's what they said. They had no idea what they were going to encounter. No maps, no intelligence, nothing. So they did what they knew best. They discovered. They were gone for 3 years, but they couldn't take 3 years worth of food, water, equipment with them. They learned and figured things out as they went along. They got smarter with every mile that they traveled. Okay, now that is just so good. That's really the journey that we're on. Most of the time we are on uncharted territory, and we just have to walk off the map and walk with God. And we just have to learn as we're going along. We have to become smarter with every mile that we travel in this life. Okay, so then they go on. And he says that developing the situation involves recognizing patterns and discovering options. Okay, now before I read you a little more, this is so important because we need to understand and recognize the patterns of our own heart, right? The way our heart operates, what it's been saying, what God has written there. It's all in the form of patterns. And we have to start recognizing God's pattern of working with us. And then we'll start seeing options or the path. Okay, so let me take you back to the book. He says, as my unit psychologist so sagely shared, the human mind works in 3 elementary phases: saturation, incubation, and illumination. And he said, time allows us to saturate our mind with context. In other words, let me break from the quote for a minute. We take time so that we can soak in the context of the larger story, right? We know this. There is a seen and unseen world because God is operating here. And we need to take time to take in that, right? The larger story of what's going on. Okay, so let me come back to the quote. Let me start with this quote again. Time allows us to saturate our minds with context so that we can incubate and spark the eureka moments of illumination that connect the dots, snap together the patterns, and discover the options that allow us to find our paths. Again, that's what we need to do. We need to take time so that we can start recognizing the patterns and we could start putting together those things. We can have those illuminations of what's really going on and what God is saying, and we can find our path.